They don't want peace, and they don't want land. All they want is the extermination of every Jew everywhere. Period. That's what this is all about, and it has been about. There's a lot of people who are misinformed, ill-informed, uneducated, ignorant, whatever word you want to use, about what this is really about, because they don't teach history in the context of the Bible anymore. There's a group here on YouTube especially, they're not really Jews, they're not really... You're telling me 2 billion Muslims are all wrong, but you and your little Breitbart Trump group, you guys have got it all figured out. Really? In today's video, I'm going to share some historical context and some maps and one theoretical map that will prove, even with this most recent attack, that they have no interest in regaining land. They have no interest in Palestine for Palestinians. I can prove it. Will you see this? Now, real quick, blast from the past. I'm sure a lot of folks older than me, more experienced than me, will know exactly what they're looking at with this picture. Some from my generation might recognize it, but younger, probably not. They'll recognize the guy in the middle. Very young President Carter. But who's the guy on the left and who's the guy with the back turned to the right? Well, on the left, we have Egyptian President Anwar al-Sadat. And on the right, we have the Prime Minister of Israel at that time, Menachem Begin. See, this was peace in the Middle East circa 1979. Now, a lot of folks my age and older will know how this ended. Very, very badly for Anwar al-Sadat and the rest of the world. We're going to go into that, and I'm going to read you the details of it, and that'll be proof of concept number 1 about they don't want peace and they don't want land. Now, real quick, just want to say thank you to everyone who continues to join us over at the Florida Maquis Patreon channel. $1 per month, even less if you sign up for an entire year. Fully refundable first 90 days, no questions asked. Partnering with Vimeo, we can take the gloves off, show videos in a very different context, different light. There is a $5 level as well. There's about a handful of videos over there. When I first started the channel, it was only $1 for everybody, but so many people signed up and said, hey, we'd like to contribute a little bit more if we could. Could you maybe set up a level for us just to make it easier? And I'm like, okay, that's not a problem. We'll do that. Sorry about the camera. I'm not sure what's going on with my mount. I think it's wearing out. But let's get right to it. Let's get to the details of this. You see, you're going to see all sorts of things now happen that are going to shock even the most hardened to war. Because Israel's going to fix a mistake they made many, 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 many decades ago. They had created for themselves a land barrier around their state because they knew they were surrounded by enemies. How many of you know that the entire Sinai Peninsula used to belong to Israel? And they gave that back. But real quick, Anwar Sadat. Anwar Sadat was assassinated. Sorry, real quick here. By his own people for making peace with Israel in 1979, before a lot of these protesters were even born. And wait till you hear the details of the assassination if you think they're all about wanting peace and land. Main article, assassination of Anwar Sadat. Let's jump right to February 1981. Egyptian authorities, about the third paragraph down, were alerted to al-Jihad's plan by the arrest of an operative carrying crucial information. In September, Sadat ordered a highly unpopular roundup of more than 1,500 people, including many jihad members, but also the Coptic Pope and other Coptic clergy, intellectuals, and activists of all ideological stripes. All non-government press was banned as well. The roundup missed a jihad cell in the military led by Lieutenant Khalid Islambouli, who would succeed in assassinating Anwar Sadat that October. On 6 October 1981, Sadat was assassinated during the annual victory parade held in Cairo to celebrate Egypt's crossing of the Suez Canal. Islambouli emptied his assault rifle into Sadat's body while in the front of the grandstand, mortally wounding the president. In addition to Sadat, 11 others were killed, including the Cuban ambassador, an Omani general, a Coptic Orthodox bishop, and Samir Helmi, the head of Egypt's Central Auditing Agency. 28 were wounded, including Vice President Hosni Mubarak, Irish Defense Minister James Tolley, and 4 U.S. military liaison officers. And the fatwa was approved by Omar Abdelrahman. Now, these are all names from a long time ago, but it's the same idea. Anyone who tries to make peace with Israel will pay the price. It's not about land. It is absolutely not about land. Here's what was the result of the 6-day war. Israel controlled everything from the Gulf of Suez all the way to the Golan Heights. West Bank, everything. And they gave back the Sinai. They gave back the Sinai. Now, this is the part that absolutely keep the receipts. Keep your Antichrist receipts. So now we have Hezbollah being very smart, confirmable quote from President 45, Chinese President, dictator Xi Jinping, very smart man. Russian President, communist dictator, President Vladimir Putin, genius and savvy. North Korean dictator, leader Kim Jong-un, great leader. And about China, Donald Trump calls Chinese president, brilliant man who rules with an iron fist. Now, I'm going to read this slowly. And I want you to tell me how you would feel if Obama said this. Ex-U.S. President Don has heaped praise on Chinese President Xi Jinping attending a Fox News town hall in Iowa. This is from 20 July 2023 of this year. He called the Chinese president an exceptionally brilliant individual who governs 1.4 billion people with an iron fist. Quote, think of President Xi, central casting, a brilliant guy. You know, when I say he's brilliant, everyone says, oh, that's terrible. He added further, well, he runs 1.4 billion people with an iron fist. Smart, brilliant, everything perfect. There's nobody in Hollywood like this guy. That's a quote from President 45. Now, a lot of folks are going to say, but Maki, haven't you seen the maps? Originally in 46, they only had this little bitty blue territory. That's true. And immediately, all of the Arab nations surrounding even this little tiny bit, this little bitty tiny bit, attacked them. And they got their asses handed to them. And that's where all this extra territory came from. And the attacks kept coming. And so they kept pushing them back. That's what this is all about, guys. This is about trying to exterminate Israel. And those of you that think that Trump's on any other side of this, look, this was his conceptual map. People said, oh, the things were at peace when Trump was... Pfft, they were just planning. They were just in the planning stage. Even Fox has an article on this. The leader of Hamas has come out and said, we've been planning this for years. Had nothing to do with the $6 billion to Iran. Nothing to do with it. The money is still frozen. You notice how they've changed the messaging? The Trumpanzees have changed the messaging. First it was the $6 billion paid for the operation. But then when they realized that not one dime of that money has been touched and that it's been refrozen now and it's still all there, nobody's saying, well, where did the money actually come from? Where did the money for the years and years and years of planning come from? Nobody's asking that question now, are they? We covered this in another video. They're going to find out who really financed this. And it ain't going to be the Iranians. It ain't going to be the Iranians because the Iranians would have come out and taken credit for it immediately. Some group would have. You notice that in this particular case? Nobody came out and took credit for it. I mean, Hamas, of course, but usually somebody, some other big operator would come out and have taken co-credit for something like this. See, this is it in American context. This is the Gaza Strip. This is how big it is. And this is how far they can launch missiles. And they have been launching missile after missile after missile. But let me show you guys something real quick that I brought up with Google Maps here. This is the Gaza Strip. This is Israel right here. Now, they had, number one, the element of surprise. They had 2,000 men. They had plenty of weapons, plenty of ammunition. They had their little hang glidery powered whatever things. And they have the ability to go in and do an extreme amount of damage. Now, what if it was really about land? They had said, okay, we're going to take the port up here. We're going to take Sederot. And then we're going to go down here and we're going to draw a line. There's kind of a river and some roads that create kind of a natural barrier down here. And we're going to take all of this farmland. And we're going to over double, almost triple the size of Gaza. And we're going to let all the settlers go. We're going to let all the civilians, all the elderly, all the women, we're going to make them lay down their arms, and we're going to make them walk to, I hope I have this right, Ophakim here or Beersheba, and just make them walk. Give them plenty of water and just let them walk out. If there's anybody that wants to shoot back, well, we'll get in firefights with them, but we'll take this land and we'll hold it. We have 2,000 men, the element of surprise, and we have all this financial backing from Hezbollah and ISIS and all this others. And we're going to do everything we can to avoid civilian casualties, but we're going to take this land and hold it. And we're going to take video of ourselves, not beheading people. We're going to take video of ourselves helping and, just having people walk away and saying and releasing them. See, the world community right now wouldn't all be behind a giant, huge ground incursion, air, land, and sea, aircraft carrier groups. If this were the case, they would say, well, look, Gaza, the Palestinians have been saying they want their land back. Why didn't they just take this little bit of land and hold it? Why did they go in, do all that horrible, heinous stuff, and then run back into their little rabbit warrens in Gaza? Why did they retreat? Why? Maybe this area might have been too big. Maybe you could have moved these borders in a little bit to what 2,000 armed men could hold. Why did they not do this? Just take this little bit, let me put it in context. Here's all of Israel. They would just expand Gaza to a little, much bigger area. People have been saying in all the reporting, oh, Gaza is this horrible slum and people are crammed into it and the conditions are horrible and blah, blah, blah. Okay, then fix that problem. Fix the humanitarian problem. Expand the border by force, I guess, and then say, look, we've got all this beautiful farmland. We have all this open area now that everybody can spread out, and now we can farm land and feed ourselves and all this stuff. They could have done this. This could have been an option, but that's not their goal, and this proves it. That's not their goal. Now, everybody wants to talk and focus on Iran. This is going to really mess a lot of people up. Who knows who this is? This is the last Shah of Iran before the Islamist revolution took over. You see, Shah is just their word for king. Now think about that for just 1 minute. The Islamist revolution took over for a king. Iran, prior to the Islamist revolution, was very liberal. Now, many people would think, wait a minute, living under a king, that's almost like living under a dictator. Why did the Puritans come to the New World? Because things got much too liberal, much too free, much too libertine under the King of England at that time. Freedom under a king? Freedom and liberty under a king. It's why they came here. To our country. Back in the 1600s, look it up. Things in England were getting far too loose morally for a lot of the very devout, very Christian population. And that's why they came to the New World. Now, I find it very ironic that Iran, much more recently, has this in its history. There were women that were walking around in Iran in miniskirts. Look that up. In the 60s, before the Islamic Revolution, things were much more free and much more liberty-minded under a king and a queen. See, that's going to blow a lot of people's minds. But that is the case. That's the facts. And a lot of people will say, well, the Islamist revolution had the support of the people. Absolutely it did. It sure did. The mob overthrew the freedom-loving king. The freedom and liberty-loving king and queen that allowed their people to be educated and allowed them to have Western values like we do. See, he was overthrown by the mob. See, they didn't exactly conduct an election per se, but the mob got their way. Mob rule is the reason Iran is the world state sponsor of terrorism. Mob rule. It's why it's an Islamist theocracy. So that's going to be something a lot of people are going to have a hard time wrapping their heads around. See, things weren't too strict in England. It was quite the other way around. In fact, I didn't bring up an image for it, but there is a show that you can watch. I believe it's on, if you have this, I believe it's on Hulu. I believe it's on Hulu, and it's called, believe it or not, it's called Harlots. And it talks about, in the 1700s and 1800s, how prevalent harlotry was in England and the United Kingdom, in Great Britain, in London specifically. And it's a sign of, complete and total freedom and abdication of authority and lack of rule of law under a king. Under a king. And here, in this country, at the very same time, guess what was going on? Let's see if I can get the map correct here. Having an issue, I got a new mouse and a little $10 deal, and I think I'm going to throw it away or return it or something. What was going on in Salem, Massachusetts in 1692? You see, in super freedom-loving liberty land, North America, the New World, they were burning witches at the stake in 1692. But in England, I believe, what did they say? One in 5 women? 1 in 5 women at that time had engaged in you-know-what for money. See, it kind of argues with what we've been taught, doesn't it? About how mob rule is always the way to go. Mob rule and voting always results in liberty and freedom and democracy and America and all that. Well, look where we're at right now. And look at Iran. Look at the story of Iran. When they had a king, they were free and happy and prosperous and not interested in terrorism at all. When they had mob rule and everybody got together and everybody wanted to be an Islamist, well, look what we get. Look what happens when you get mob rule. So, I know that's kind of a hard, mind-blowing thing to wrap your head around, but we're seeing it now in this country too, with poll after poll wanting a dictator. Wanting a guy who believes dictators, not this guy. What did I do with it? Oh, here it is. Who is now on record 4 different times praising dictators. I want you to imagine for a minute the pictures you're seeing here. If this was Obama, if it was Obama shaking hands with Putin, shaking hands with Xi Jinping, with Kim Jong-un, and calling Hezbollah very smart, and praising the way Xi Jinping governs his people with that iron fist and how wonderful that is and how brilliant it is. History. History will tell you everything you need to know about what's coming. So once again, thank you. God bless. Pray for each other. Pray for me. I'll pray for you. Lift each other up. God bless. Like, share, subscribe. We'll see you guys next time.